And so, of course, we have to talk about the possibility of miracles, because this seems like a big deal. So let's begin by dealing with some of the main objections to the resurrection. Clearly, if Jesus returned from the dead, that would be a miraculous event. Mm-hmm. Dead men usually stay dead.
Right.
That's the claim. Resurrections aren't natural events.
That's right.
The natural course of events is for dead people to stay dead. So if the resurrection actually occurred, it would require a supernatural cause to explain. There's some issues with that.
Yeah, well, some people, he says, dismiss the claim that Jesus rose from the dead because they think miracles are impossible in principle, right? And this was actually one of David Hume's, mm-hmm. his, 1700 philosopher, skeptic, actually. This was one of his claims, right? Miracles are impossible in principle. That is, miracles just can't happen. Now, he didn't really argue that. Hume argued so this is kind of a more ontological, metaphysical type of claim, right? It's impossible for it to happen. His argument had to do with how do we know a miracle happened? So we call that epistemological argument, right? Mm-hmm. But anyway, he does deal with this in his paper on miracles. So, miracles can't happen is what some people claim, right? Every event has a natural cause, and of course a miracle would violate the laws of nature. But the laws of nature can't be violated. If they could, they wouldn't be laws, right? So notice we have a really succinct and tight argument here, right? We say that every event has a natural cause, mm-hmm. right? A miracle then would violate the natural cause of any event, right? It violate the laws of nature. Of course, they can't be violated, and so, therefore, miracles can happen. So there it is, right?
Tuck it away.
Yeah.
We're there.
Yeah.
Well, such thing is very common, but it's also very flawed. Laws aren't, by definition, unavoidable. Just think about the laws of logic, for example, which are regularly flouted.
Yeah. In fact, the laws can be violated, and they are violated all the time.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah. Strictly speaking, the laws of nature only describe how things proceed naturally. That is, how the natural universe behaves in normal circumstances. I always think of you drop a rock from a height, law of gravity, it's the law, it's got to obey it, and so it falls to the ground. It will always fall to the ground. Now you reach up and you catch the rock. You violated the laws of gravity. The world is left and right, up is down, dogs and cats living together, mass hysteria.
What he means is Old Testament, Mr. Mayor. Real wrath of God type stuff.
Exactly.
Fire and brimstone coming down from the skies. Rivers and seas boiling.
40 years of darkness, earthquakes, volcanoes. The dead rising from the grave.
Human sacrifice, dogs and cats living together, mass hysteria. Enough, I get the point.
But the laws of nature, by definition, don't tell us anything about supernatural causes.
Right. And so this is an interesting point, right? The laws of nature, yes, they do, tell us how things generally and normally work, mm-hmm. right? But if we're talking about the existence of God and miracles and that sort of thing, we're not talking about how things generally and normally work. We're talking about supernatural, right, events where God intervenes, right? Mm-hmm. In other words, if there's a God who created this universe, then miracles, he tells us, must be possible, right? In fact, some have argued that the biggest miracle is in Genesis chapter 1.
Right.
In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth, right?
From a collection of things that he watered and eventually grew.
Right.
No, from ex nihilo, from nothing.
So he tells us to insist that miracles are impossible is really to deny the existence of God, right? But he's already argued that the most basic aspects of human experience, they don't need, they only make sense based on the existence of God. And so consequently, he says every reason to believe in God is also a reason to believe that miracles are possible, that things can happen which defy any purely natural explanation. So if you believe in God, you have to believe in miracles. Right? Mm-hmm. The only reason you wouldn't believe in miracles is you don't believe in God.
Right. Right. And he says ironically, for this reason, the popular idea that miracles conflict with science has things backwards.
Oh, okay. So miracles conflict with science. How is that backwards?
Well, science is only possible because the universe is the creation of an orderly, rational, personal God.
All right.
The same God who makes science possible also makes miracles possible. So in reality, those who deny the possibility of miracles are dismissing the Christian worldview from the onset without considering the actual evidence for it. And so, the universe is chaotic, and it goes through this change process, and there's a system that helps us in survival. It also forms chemicals in the stars, and so why wouldn't it continue to form and create things? And why not universes within universes? And why does it have order? Why does it sustain itself? Why does it do all the things that we kind of take for granted? Why do we look up at the night sky and we don't worry about the implosion of the atmosphere? It happens to hold in the way that it does.
Yeah.
And so,
So that's
in the chaos of the universe that we're supposed to be in awe of. Why aren't we in awe of the mundane of just it continuing?
Right. So both miracles and science are dependent on God. In fact, we use science, right, as a way to help us recognize miracles, because science, at least to a certain extent, tells us what's the natural order of things, how naturally things. And miracles are supernatural, right? So science doesn't conflict with miracles. In fact, it exposes miracles, right? Because miracles are those things that happen outside of science that are supernatural, right? So, I think he's on to something here, right?
And C.S. Lewis wrote this good book that you let me borrow one time, and of course now I quote it endlessly, so you're to blame for getting me into Lewis more. But in this book, Miracles, he writes this: "For this reason, the question whether miracles occur can never be answered simply by experience. Every event that might claim to be a miracle is, in the last resort, something presented to our senses, something seen, heard, touched, smelled, or tasted. And our senses are not infallible. If anything extraordinary seems to have happened, we can always say that we have been the victims of an illusion. We hold a philosophy which excludes the supernatural. This is what we always shall say. What we learn from experience depends on the kind of philosophy we bring to experience. It is therefore useless to appeal to experience before we have settled, as well as we can, the philosophical question." So Lewis has this almost presuppositional view.
Oh, yeah. He says it's based on your worldview whether or not a miracle could happen. And so let's look at your worldview first, right? Your philosophy. And if your philosophy rules out miracles, then of course nothing that you see, hear, taste, touch, or whatever will prove to you that a miracle is a miracle. But if your philosophy doesn't rule out miracles, now you can look, we might say, objectively, or at least more objectively at events and make certain kinds of decisions, right? Determinations.
It's that if the impossible is the only explanation left, then the impossible is what you should go to. Yeah. And we talked with J. Warner Wallace about this in our interview. We asked him the question, if you're coming to a crime scene now and you have this broader worldview of including the supernatural, and all kind of natural explanations are gone away with, would you tend towards the supernatural? He says, well, by the very fact that I do believe in the supernatural, if it defied all natural explanations, then the supernatural is still available to us to talk about. So
it gives us other avenues to help us to explain, right? Yep. Yeah. All right, so what about the probability of miracles, right? Even if miracles are possible, right, because God exists and that sort of thing, it doesn't follow, he tells us, that it's reasonable to believe any bizarre miracle claim that happens to come our way. And of course, that's true, right? We ought to be generally skeptical about miracle claims. That's what he says. If there's a plausible natural explanation for some phenomenon, we should prefer that over a supernatural explanation, right? We don't just willy-nilly believe in anything, any account. If there is a natural explanation, that's what we should gravitate toward. He says, however, that some critics of Christianity have taken this, what he calls default skepticism, a step further and argue that natural explanations should always be preferred no matter what, right? And so that's what he wants to take issue with, right?
But it's a mistake to think that miracles are so intrinsically improbable that it could never be reasonable to believe one had actually occurred. To see this point, let's consider another kind of improbable event, winning the lottery.
All right. Well, yeah, I'd love to see that.
Great thought experiment.
Yeah.
You know, just to be on the safe side, we should petition the government to let us, carry out this.
That's right. That's right. That is, let us win the lottery. Is that? Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, works for me.
Yeah. So let's assume that 10 million tickets are sold this week, and your friend Alex buys one ticket,
Right.
and that every ticket has an equal chance of winning. So the odds of Alex winning the lottery this week are 1 in 10 million. Obviously, with those odds, it's extremely improbable that Alex, not just anyone, but Alex specifically, will win the lottery.
All
But
right.
he goes on to do
Go
this. And so, 10 million, 1 in 10 million is actually a pretty good odds for the lottery. I just want to say that this thought experiment is already should dissuade you from...
He should up it with at least another zero, right? 100 million.
Yeah. So again, it goes on to say, imagine, however, that Alex calls you the day of the draw in the state of unprecedented excitement. He's almost hysterical as he screams down the phone, "I won the lottery!
All right.
I got it! I got the winning ticket! Run home, Charlie Bucket!" The point here is that the probability that an event has occurred can be raised when we have specific evidence for it. In this case, your friend's testimony, backed up by his personal trustworthiness. Is Alex a good guy? Is he known for practical jokes or lying? Well, if my good friend Alex is on the phone telling me he won the lottery and I know he plays the lottery, that puts more confidence within my believability in him winning. Yeah. In light of the evidence, it would be perfectly reasonable for you to conclude that your friend has indeed won the lottery.
Yeah, so the issue here is miracles are improbable. Well, maybe, but if we have the right kind of evidence and that sort of thing, then that doesn't mean that it's unreasonable to claim that something improbable has happened. Mm-hmm. That's the argument that he's trying to make, right? So we can, they're reasonable. It can be reasonable in certain circumstances to believe in some improbable event has happened.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So he gives this example of Krishna Hitchens saying, there's this stranger on the bus that comes up to you and says, "Well, you know I was dead, right? And so what confidence do you have in that?" Well, in his really good debate series with Doug Wilson says, "Okay, now instead of a stranger on the train, make it your friend who's telling you that you've known for quite some time that he's told you he's dead. He was dead. Now he's alive." Would that instill greater confidence? Okay, now put the context of Jesus and his disciples. This isn't a stranger coming up to disciples and saying, "Hey, I was once dead and now I'm alive." This is a greater confidence that we should have.
Who predicted his death and resurrection.
Again, we can't just take a piecemeal out. We have to put it in a context,
exactly.
historical, a timeline and all these things. So it's not a one-to-one correlation that skeptics like to bring about here.